I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Friday, October 29th. We are in Halloween weekend. Excited for that. You know, I get to take my two kids trick-or-treating this weekend. It's my oldest birthday. We got a big birthday party going on. A lot of good college football games, a lot of good NFL games, and for the most part, I think the NFL weekend kicked off pretty good with that game last night. Matt is here with me, so we will recap the Cardinals and the Packers, and then we will preview the entire Week 8 NFL slate. Matt, how you doing on this beautiful Friday?
Hanging in there, feeling a little bit better. Getting ready for the weekend. We have round 2 of Trunk or Treats that we're doing a trunk for tomorrow. We did Mandalorian Christmas. I don't know if you saw our little post. We have Baby Yoda building a tree, so that's been kind of fun to see the kids. And then, as has been the case for a lot of October, on Sunday, it looks like I'm going to be the supervisor on duty again.
Yeah, we did a trunk or treat at one of my wife's good friends' schools last weekend. I saw the picture that you posted. Yeah, we took our kids. My son went as Master Chief, and then my youngest went as an Among Us character, which was interesting to say the least, because that costume is about as tall as me with him inside of it. And so it was we have like a massive fan in there. It's like help keep the costume blown up and keep him cool. And so it was fun, I guess, walking behind him and like somewhat holding it up because it's probably a little bit too big for him, but
So is it going to be warm there this weekend? Because tomorrow for us, for the trunk or treat that we're doing, it's supposed to be 71. On Sunday, actual Halloween, daytime high is supposed to be 47 with a rain-snow mix in the afternoon or evening. So good luck, kiddos.
Yeah, for us, I believe, like right now, it's been really beautiful early morning and night, getting down. It's like the 50s, 60s, which I like. I prefer that weather. And then in the afternoons, it's been getting up to like the 70s, so it's not too bad. Yesterday for my kids' soccer practice, it was like 74, 75. So I assume it's going to be something like that. So, you know,
they were saying it could be like 38 or 39 when they're out trick or treating.
That is not going to be fun. I'm not going to lie. I'm glad that's one of the great things about living in Texas sometimes is during winter or late fall for a lot of other people starts to get bad for us. It's just like like a little bit of early fall. All right, so let's talk about that Thursday night game. Oh, no, we're not. We're going to talk about how much we love to be a part of the Pigskin Podcast Network first, because we do. You can find them at pigskin@podnet on Twitter, or you can check out the hashtag that I have here at the top of the screen, TPPN. We hashtag that when we go live, as does everybody else. It really, truly is a great network to be a part of, and we are excited to be with them for the Thursday night football game. The Packers end up beating the Cardinals, so you were right on this one. You had the Packers, and I said on Wednesday that I could see it happen, and I hoped it happened, but I did end up going with the Cardinals, and Rodgers and them were able to pull it off here. But Robert Tonyan appeared to get hurt. What does this mean for Green Bay, and has A.J. Dillon worked himself into becoming flex-worthy?
Yeah, I might have been right about the final, but what an anticlimactic last few minutes. You have Green Bay get a touchdown pulled off the board, and then arguably one of the worst drives in history, but pin them inside the one, have the Cardinals go all the way down, only for A.J. Green not to realize that he's getting the ball thrown to him and just gift an interception. I thought for sure it was going to be overtime. So I ended up being right. That wasn't exactly how I drew it up. Robert Tonyan, kind of a bummer. I thought for sure it was either ACL or something. It looked like it was a total non-contact injury. I know he got kind of pushed down at the time, but it's really he had stopped his momentum, and you saw him picking up his leg and starting to reach down for it before he even hit the ground. It seemed like Matt LaFleur seemed to indicate that it's probably an ACL, so that would be the end of his season. I was interested. Josiah Jaguar, who's their second-year guy, got involved a little bit. We've seen them use Mercedes Lewis down there. I think it's going to be a combination of those two, which is probably fine for the Packers, but not great for fantasy. For A.J. Dillon, we've seen him be decent a few times. He's making the most of carries he's getting. The big difference between him and what a Jamal Williams had typically done is he doesn't seem to have any role in the passing game, which I think limits some of his upside since most people play in PPR leagues. I also have to wonder if with no receivers playing a pretty stout offense, it seemed like their plan was to try to ground and pound and chew the clock up last night. That might have impacted how much opportunity Dillon's given. Jones appears to be by far and away still the number one guy. He catches passes. All of the red zone, I was watching all the red zone drives. They weren't really sticking Dillon in there when they were down in the red zone. It was all Aaron Jones. So Dillon, I would like to see more consistency probably before I feel confident that he has weekly flex value.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I'm curious I think he should have probably gotten another touchdown there. I mean, with Aaron Jones, he got stuffed multiple times on the goal line, and A.J. Dillon was just kind of like throwing dudes aside most of that game. I feel like they probably should have put him back in and let him get that touchdown.
I would have for sure.
So I wonder if maybe they start using him a little bit more in the red zone and almost make it a Jamal Williams, Aaron Jones split, but Aaron Jones becoming more of the Jamal Williams in the fact that he is so good in the receiving game. And not to say he's not a good runner, because he is. But I do think A.J. Dillon is a little bit more effective through the tackles, like up the middle, than Aaron Jones is. So I'm with you on that. I definitely want to see it more before I just throw him in. There's just one game, and Aaron Jones has been so good all season long. I don't know that they're just going to go in next week and reduce Aaron Jones carries enough to continue to make A.J. Dillon flex worthy. But I could very much see this being a Zeke Elliott, Tony Pollard type situation. Maybe not this year, but possibly by next if A.J. Dillon continues to play this way. Because the Packers, I think, as long as Aaron Rodgers stays, which will be a major question this offseason with the way he reworked his contract, but if he stays there, I think they want to try and limit Jones a little bit here and there to kind of save him for the playoffs. I think their ultimate goal is a Super Bowl, not, say, winning in week 8. Or whatever, and having him have like 35 carries and 10 catches. On the Cardinals side here, they come up short. Should we be concerned about Hopkins or Murray? Hopkins, the one thing I'll say on Hopkins, though, it was a hamstring injury. But I also don't like that he forced himself back into the game. Because I know they were reporting, so I was kind of like watching the game, but with no sound because I was recording with our good friend Colin last night. And I saw the text and everything saying, well, he's out for the game because I wasn't watching, so I couldn't hear the volume. And then I saw that he just kind of like forced himself back out on the field and then like almost immediately gets like a 70-yard touchdown catch. Now it got called back because of the face mask that he had down the sideline. So I would assume he's going to be okay that he did that and he came back in. Murray is concerning. Now, I will admit I haven't really looked at anything to see if they've said anything, but he was laying on the ground. He was limping a lot in that last drive.
Yeah, and they said he was wearing a boot when he came out for interviews and stuff. So that would be a little bit concerning. Hopkins, he's a gamer and he wants to play through it. I was trying to look. They have 3 weeks before a bye week. If they had a bye coming up, I'd probably feel a little better. The kind of a hamstring injury. He's a gamer and wants to play through it, but at the same time, I feel like consistently pushing and trying to go out there prevents it from ever getting to be 100%. Now, maybe playing Thursday night, you get 10 days off. It's kind of like having a mini bye. Maybe that helps him get back in shape. But more concerning to me would be Murray looked like he jacked up his ankle. He looked like he was having trouble walking at the end. That certainly looked like an impact of the throw a little bit. If he was to miss significant time, I don't even know who their current backup is. I'm afraid it's that Streveling guy. I'm going to look at the depth chart really quick. But none of them are going to be like, it's Colt McCoy. So Colt McCoy, a veteran who's played, but that's, a different game plan. I think the bigger thing with Hopkins is they have a lot of receivers, but you saw there in that pivotal interception a couple of times in the middle of the game, AJ Green in 2021 is not DeAndre Hopkins. Christian Kirk is not DeAndre Hopkins. Rondale Moore has his own issues adjusting. I was surprised they didn't seem to be using Zach Ertz that much. I mean, there was quite a few shots when they go to Hopkins on the sideline, and he was standing there with Ertz. And I'm like, okay, who else is out there for you? They have a lot of weapons, but nobody is quite as dynamic as DeAndre Hopkins and quite the leader and the competitor Hopkins is. So that's where I would be concerned if you're a Cardinal fan. If you lose a Murray, that's devastating. You can't really get a Hopkins. That's also devastating. You're talking about a couple of the big leaders on your team.
Yeah, Murray, I would think I want to see more. See, I didn't see the boot stuff. I've been out of commission all morning. It's been a rough day at the Bruning household. I ran into some kind of wall last night. Maybe I shouldn't have stayed up to like 3:00 in the morning watching Sopranos. That would maybe that's what got me. I got a little late night chips and queso kind of little fiend inside me. I needed, and I went and got some, and then sat around. I was like, you know what? Nothing's better than a little mafia, some killing, and chips and queso. And maybe that's what's got me this morning. But it's not been a fun morning to be me.
The killing was your sinuses.
That was, yeah, it's definitely like, bro, you're eating cheese when you know your nose and throat aren't feeling well, and then it's got me now. Like I paid for it. It was delicious though, so I don't regret one decision. Hopkins has not missed any game. So the one thing I can't remember is 2019. He was still with Houston. That was the only year that he played 15 games. I don't remember if he was hurt or if maybe he sat. I don't think Houston was that good that they would have sat him for a game, but I cannot remember. So that is the one thing that I am curious with, because as you mentioned it, and I'm pretty sure we talked about it a little bit on Wednesday, he is a gamer. He does not miss games no matter what. I know for a fact that he has not been 100% healthy every single year. He's definitely had some injuries and some nicks and bruises. He's played through all of them. I would bet that he's going to play every week, but maybe it's something where he's not targeted too heavily, or maybe they don't use him too much downfield to try and keep that hamstring intact. But that is something we've got to watch for.
And that's what they seemed like they did last night, is they used him more in a rotation. They put him out in key spots.
Yeah. And that would make sense, because I think the big thing, like I just mentioned with Aaron Jones and the Packers, is their end game is playoff Super Bowl. We don't need to go undefeated, and that's out the window now too. So I'd be very curious to see what they do, because the big thing with Arizona though too is this is kind of where they were last year. Now they weren't undefeated, but I'm pretty sure they only had like 1 or 2 losses. And then they got a couple injuries and things started to crumble for them. We know they lost J.J. Watt, which is a big thing for that defense. And now you got Murray and Hopkins hurting. They really kind of need to manage these guys better. Because the other thing I will say, and this is probably the first time I've gone negative on this, Dennis has not been a big fan of Cliff Kingsbury. I feel like he got out-coached last night by not just Matt LaFleur and that defense, a team that was missing a lot of their starters. I think if we're all being honest with ourselves, even as good as Aaron Rodgers was, that should have easily been should have been more a Cardinals win than Packers, with everybody the Packers are missing, not just on the offense, but on the defense. And to me, it did not look like the Cardinals really controlled that game. Now, they probably should have won it had Murray not thrown an interception, or at least gone into overtime, and we see what happens. That was a weird play. I don't put that on Murray at all, because it looked to me like AJ Green
looked like he was walking.
Was. Yeah, it looked like he didn't know what the play call was. So I will. I'm not going to put that on Murray, but it was a weird game for the Cardinals.
Yeah, if it hadn't gotten picked, I bet it would have been an OPI because of the way he was pushing the defender. Well, we're about to talk about the rest of the slate and give you some of our insight. But if you want the tools that help Bob Harris reach the Fantasy Football Hall of Fame, head to footballdiehards.com and get the Flash Update Pro. It's a full suite of tools to make you a better fantasy manager. Rankings, configurable cheat sheets, mock drafts, consistency tools, target distribution, snap counts, and more. Use code Roundtable for an additional 15% off the already low price of $24.
All right, let's jump into the previews here, and we've got the 3-4 Panthers at the 3-3 Atlanta Falcons. The Panthers have lost 4 straight, and the leash is getting it shorter for Sam Darnold. Can he turn it around and get it right this week?
Well, it's another decent matchup, but I mean, you would have thought he had a favorable matchup last week facing the Giants, and it just couldn't get it going. Maybe sitting down gives them a little bit of a kick. But there's something that's just not working with him and the offense. He was actually later today, I think, when my sit starts come out on Campus to Canton, he was my sit for the week at quarterback. I just am not confident that he's back to what we saw the first 3 weeks. He probably will be a mid to low end QB2, but he's had a real turnover issue, and their offense has not been the same without McCaffrey, who's not coming back. Atlanta has a decent offense. I think they will press that defense, and they will press to make this more of a scoring game. And Sam Darnold he doesn't look like he's got it. He's in a pivotal situation. I would love for him to turn it around, but I don't trust him.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on the not trusting him thing. I feel like we've talked a lot about it on here that since CMC has gone down, that seems to have really hurt Darnold. I don't know that he turns around, even as bad as this Atlanta offense has been most of this year. He still has a lot of really good players on the team, and DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Tommy Tremble has been good at times as well. Terrace Marshall, who's a rookie that a lot of people thought was going to be really good, he's done nothing so far this season. And Joe Brady's a guy that I really like. I think he's a great offensive play caller. And it's not even just the Darnold turnovers. This offense has not looked the same without CMC. So the only player I've really started, and even he has been kind of up and down these past couple of weeks, is DJ Moore is probably the only guy I'm buying into in this offense. And Darnold, unfortunately, I think is kind of losing a lot of his value, and I'm not even sure holds like a future NFL starter position with the way he's played.
Yeah, and Marshall is out again this week. And for, Darnold, there was a lot of talk about Darnold had trouble connecting with Robbie Anderson when they were with the Jets. They have not formed much of a connection. Robbie Anderson was much better last year with Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah. All right, on the Atlanta Falcons side here, they are 3-3. Can they keep this rolling?
I think they can. There was a little bit of struggles, I think, at the beginning of the season, but they seem to have figured it out and gotten into a groove. Kyle Pitts looks like a beast, kind of a big play guy. They've used Ridley as more of a possession guy. They have Russell Gage is back healthy, and really, I mean, much to our surprise, they seem to have really found something with Cordero Patterson, who's been decent for them in the run game, decent as a receiver. And it's come, they've looked better as they've minimized the role of Mike Davis, which is a bummer for fantasy, but has been good for them. I actually think Atlanta's going to win this game and is the team that's surging.
Yeah, what's been fun for me is seeing Kyle Pitts' targets and everything go up. I almost feel like he's become the one in this offense now with the way that Calvin Ridley is kind of slumped. I'd be curious to see what Ridley can do again this week, but I'm here for it. I'd love to not have to sing Hail to the Victors if possible, and it's trending that way. But I'm with you. I mean, Atlanta, besides, the first couple of weeks where they did not look good, they have really turned it around right before their bye, and now last week as well. And I do think that continues. I mean, Matt Ryan looks like a completely different quarterback these past couple of weeks than he did earlier in the season. The defense is still an issue, I think, but this offense has been humming. And again, even with Calvin Ridley not really producing, they've been good. And if he can actually turn it on and be the Calvin Ridley we saw last year, I think this offense can even take another step forward.
And maybe Stephon Gilmore gets activated and does something, but Carolina's defense has massively fallen off from where they were first 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's I was listening to a show this morning, Wake Up with Ray G, and there's a big Panthers fan that they were talking about this game, and he was commenting in there that word around Carolina is that there's a shot he will be activated and playing this weekend. So that's definitely something to watch out for because I mean, I agree that the Panthers defense hasn't been great, and Stephon Gilmore, I mean, last we saw him was still a very, very good player, coming back from a pretty serious injury. But I'm curious to see what he looks like this weekend. With that said, I think I am going to take the Falcons to win the game.
Yeah, I took the Falcons, as I mentioned. Dennis took the Panthers.
All right, the 1-6 Miami Dolphins at the 4-2 Buffalo Bills. Do you feel good about starting anybody on the Dolphins?
Mike Gesicki. I think Mike Gesicki is still a top 5 tight end. And if I'm in Superflex, there are worse options than Tua as my QB2, but I'm not actually that bullish on him in this game. The only one I feel real set on is Mike Gesicki.
Sorry, I am dealing with all kinds of stuff over here. Maybe instead of making excuses for the Packers one, maybe they're just better. Maybe they are, Taylor. I don't remember us making an excuse at all for the Packers winning.
No, they are a better team. I just thought the ending was a little anticlimactic. Yeah. I actually think Aaron Jones scored that we didn't mention, but I was surprised they overturned that on replay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't remember us giving any excuses for the Packers. I just said with the team, the fact that they were missing so many starters, that's why I leaned Arizona. I don't think the Packers are a bad team at all. In fact, I mean, maybe you haven't been listening all year. I'm pretty sure I picked the Packers to make it and win the Super Bowl. So you're not going to hear me saying the Packers are not a good team. So I apologize if you took it that way, but that's not at all what we were saying. So anyways, on the Dolphins side, yeah, I'm with you. Mike Gesicki for sure is in my starting lineups. Myles Gaskin, I'm probably still flexing because he's the lead running back. And I do think he's going to get some receiving work, but even then, I think there's only so many running backs you can play every single week at this point that I think he's just got to be in there. But I've really lowered expectations for what I'm expecting out of him every single week. For the Bills here, Stephon Diggs was really hot pre-bye week. Do you think he stays hot now that they've come back from their bye?
Yeah, and Miami's pass defense was supposed to be a strength of their team, but it's been more of a liability the last few weeks. I think it's going to be a big game for Diggs and Allen. They had 2 weeks to contemplate that loss to Tennessee. I think they're going to come out hard.
Yeah, I think Buffalo is wanting to just trounce everybody, so I would not be surprised. We talked about it earlier this year that Stephon Diggs wasn't doing quite what he did last year, but it was only a matter of time. I think that time has come. I have him as my wide receiver 1 this week. I think he's in for a big week here against the Dolphins, and I'm taking the Bills to win the game.
Dennis and I are also on the Bills.
Next up, the 2-4 San Francisco 49ers at the 3-4 Chicago Bears. We know that Jimmy G is at least going to start the game. Can he turn it around and get the 49ers back in the win column?
Yeah, I expect him to have a little bit of a better game. Elijah Mitchell was good last week in the inclement weather. I think he has a chance to be decent too, but I think the 49ers really are feeling a lot of pressure, and this is a winnable game. I expect them to come out and look a lot better. Hopefully, maybe he'll even remember Brandon Ayuk as a member of his team.
That's what I was going to bring up. My goodness. He did miss Brandon Ayuk. I was watching a replay of it. I think it was Jim... can't remember his last name now. One of the really good doctor guys. I know we both follow because you've mentioned him before too, and he's a big 49ers fan. I'll look it up because I don't want to just call him Jim the doctor guy. He had posted a video about that the other day. Some picture of the.
Yeah, they missed him on it, and potentially he was open for an 80-yard TD.
Yeah.
The conditions were horrific. The Brandon Ayuk thing feels a little bit more like something's going on off the field because you've had some sort of lukewarm to negative comments from Kyle Shanahan and from John Lynch, and it doesn't seem they're featuring him the same way. But they need somebody other than Deebo Samuel if they really want to keep going. And George Kittle's not available. Ross Dwelley hasn't looked like the guy. They don't really have any of the other receivers that have exactly emerged. And Ayuk is a talented player that they took in the first round for a reason. I would expect sooner or later they're going to get him going if they want to make a serious run.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I was very surprised. I remember making a comment about that when the news, or not the news came out, but when I read what John Lynch had said about Brandon Ayuk, I just felt like that there's just some weird stuff going on in that organization. I can't. It doesn't make any sense.
Denver, when we get there, Vic Fangio, basically they were like, Jerry Judy's coming back. And he's like, well, he'll be out there, but it won't change our offense. People might notice he's out there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I cannot find this guy to save my life in his name. So
I do remember seeing something like that. But yeah, I think Jimmy G will have a better game. He seemed frustrated too.
Yeah. For the excuse me. For the Chicago Bears side, what do we expect from Khalil Herbert? We know Damien Williams is back. Last week probably, people like myself overthought that a little bit. Him coming straight off the COVID list, no practice, probably wasn't much of a chance that Damien Williams did much, and he didn't, but he is now a week full back into practice. So what are you expecting between him and Khalil Herbert for the Chicago Bears offense?
Well, and I think there's still a chance Williams is the preferred passing back. But Khalil Herbert has done nothing to diminish his snaps for the Bears. In fact, they should be increasing it. From weeks 5 to 7, when he really started getting an opportunity, he's running back 13 on the season. He was probably the lone bright spot for the Bears last week in a shellacking at the hands of the Buccaneers. He got 100 yards rushing against a very tough defensive front. The 49ers do not have as tough of a defensive front. If we saw what Jonathan Taylor and some other backs have done against them, I think they need to give the ball to Herbert and try to, do what they can to help Justin Fields, who's been struggling with accuracy, with turnovers. Having a strong running game has helped the Bears to be more competitive. They got to continue to lean into that. He was a start in my start-sit column this week. I like him.
Very nice. Hey, I'm a big fan of that. Like I said, I don't remember many people talking about picking him up back when David Montgomery went down outside of myself, and he has been amazing, and I hope it continues to work out that way because I'm with you. It even goes, I want to say it goes back to even last year about Tampa Bay not allowing 100-yard rushers, and then Khalil Herbert goes out there and does that last week. And as you mentioned, he was the lone bright spot for this offense. I think he deserves to be the starter over Damien Williams. And just with the way he's run the ball, he even looked better than that very first week that him and Damien Williams were together. He looked better. The difference was Damien Williams had 2 catches and a touchdown. Outside of that, Khalil Herbert's stats look better. So I'm with you. I think he's the guy. Continue to play him until Montgomery comes back, at which point we'll talk more about that, obviously, when Montgomery comes back. I think you probably have to sit him when Montgomery comes back because I don't know what the workload would be like, but I feel like because of how good he's played, if he continues this pace, he's likely worked himself into some kind of timeshare with Montgomery, but how much of that timeshare will be the question.
Probably just enough to crush the value of both guys.
Probably, unfortunately. I will take, you know what? Because I am petty, and I hope this works out in his favor, I'm going to take the Bears and Fields. I hope that Fields plays well enough to beat the 49ers as a kind of a stick it to Jimmy G for taking Trey Lance over him.
I am going to take the 49ers, and Dennis is also taking the 49ers.
All right, next up, excuse me, what could be a very interesting game, the 3-3 Pittsburgh Steelers at the 4-3 Cleveland Browns. Aside from Harris and Johnson, are there any other Steelers you like here?
No, not really. I mean, you would like to like Chase Claypool, who was good last year, but I just don't trust the passing game enough. He's probably a deep league flex at best.
Yeah, with Juju being out, I think he's at least worth a flex. Cleveland's gonna be missing Denzel Ward tomorrow, which is huge. Or tomorrow, it's not Saturday yet, guys. On Sunday. And this secondary hasn't been great, even with a lot of the players they've gotten back. They've still suffered some injuries in there. I think Claypool could end up getting you a couple big plays here. I do expect this to be, I don't want to say a shootout, but I expect some points to get put up between these two teams because I think Pittsburgh's defense is good, and the Browns are going to have to pass the ball a little bit, which is going to be a question mark with Baker here. So what are we expecting from the run game? We know Nick Chubb is going to be back. Dearness Johnson looked amazing last week. Steelers, though, a very good defense. So what are you expecting from those two?
Yeah, I think they're going to have to ride the running game, and I think Dearness Johnson will mix in a little bit. I have him, I think, in RB3 range, but I still like Nick Chubb. We've seen Chubb doesn't need 30 carries to be able to make an impact. He's kind of a special player. I would trust the running game more than the passing game.
I think you're going to have to, because we don't know what Baker is going to do this week. I truly believe they would not put him out there if he wasn't at least like 70 to 80%. And he was technically playing with this injury beforehand, and it wasn't affecting him too much. The way I kind of compared it when I recorded last night with Colin and we were talking about this was, if you watch the Thursday night game, I know that Baker wasn't out there, but you could clearly see Teddy's lower leg injuries affecting him throwing the ball. There's sometimes he could not put any air on it. I think that's why that ball was intercepted in the end zone in that game, because he was really not being able to drive off that back foot. Baker can still drive the ball. He hasn't lost any velocity, hasn't really lost any accuracy with that. But how much is it going to bother him throwing now that there's also a slight fracture in there? I don't know. Something we're going to have to watch. And how much is it going to bother him if he takes a couple hits? Because I'm going to be honest, it's probably going to happen. As good as that Browns offensive line is now that they've gotten practically everybody back, the Steelers defensive line is really good. They're likely going to get to Baker at least once or twice this game. So if he gets hit a couple times, how much does that bother him? I'm with you. They're likely going to lean on Chubb and Dearness Johnson as much as possible. When it comes to the passing game, I don't know where you had Baker. I had him at 24, so I'm not expecting a big game from him this week. And I think the only player I would trust is Jarvis, because of him working in the short area of the field and how quickly he creates just enough separation for the ball to get to him. Baker might get it to him a lot in this game, because I don't know that Baker's going to go downfield.
Yeah, I had Baker down in the 20s too.
I'm going to take the Browns, but I don't feel great about it.
Dennis and I also took the Browns.
All right. Next up, the 2-5 Philadelphia Eagles at the 0-7 Detroit Lions. What do you like about the backfield with Miles Sanders?
Yeah, I think it's a tick up for Kenneth Gainwell, who has already been a part of the backfield, but it seemed like when Sanders went out, they still used Gainwell in the way that he had been being used, and they rotated Boston Scott in there to get some carries. They haven't exactly had the most robust rushing game anyway. But, deep league desperation, maybe Scott is worth it, but Gainwell would probably be the one I would pick, and I don't have him incredibly high.
Yeah, I actually think I'd lean Boston Scott. We've seen, and I don't like saying that, but we've seen in the past couple of years when Miles Sanders has been injured or out, that's who they've leaned on, and they brought him back out last week. And I definitely think Gainwell's probably more of the receiving back, but we also haven't seen Hurts really dump off to either one of those guys. Earlier in the season, Gainwell was getting a lot of work, and then that just kind of disappeared. And as you mentioned, the fact that they really don't seem to want to run the ball with anybody but Jalen Hurts, I don't know that either one of these guys has a tremendous amount of value in this game, even going up against the Detroit Lions, because they've been playing decent. I mean, I know they're 0-7, but they realistically could have had a couple wins in there. They could easily be 3-4 right now.
The Rams rushing game last week.
Yeah. And, I mean, they could easily be 3-4 with the way they've played and how they've gotten some heartbreaking losses throughout this year. So realistically, if you're plugging either one of those guys in, we're talking deep league flex. I wouldn't even trust. I don't have either guys in RB2 this week. I don't. I think Scott I have ranked higher, and I think I have him at 27 if I'm remembering correctly. So it's not a great feeling on either one of those guys. For the Lions, we've seen them come closer in recent weeks to pulling off that win. Is this finally the week?
I think it is.
I don't think I'm taking the Eagles, so I don't think so. But I do think it's going to be a good game. The one thing I will say that I really like, at least last week, and we'll see if that continues over, is the previous weeks they've really only thrown the ball a lot to DeAndre Swift. It seems like in the fourth quarter, and running him and passing him the ball a lot. Last week we got throughout the entire game, and he had a huge game for the Lions. Let's hope they do that here again. And it's
And
fire.
Hawkinson.
I was about to say, you're starting Hawkinson every week anyways, but this is the week right here because the Eagles are horrible against the tight end.
Dennis and I are true believers. We're taking the Lions.
I hope I'm wrong because, I really want to see the Lions win. I really like Dan Campbell and what he's doing there, but I am going to take the Eagles. The 5-2 Tennessee Titans at the 3-4 Indianapolis Colts. A.J. Brown is heating up. Can he keep it going?
Yeah, he's bounced back as they've had a more resurgent passing game. He was great last week against the Chiefs. The Colts back-end defense doesn't scare me. I think he's in for another wide receiver 1 week.
Yeah, I mean, this is what he does, right? He has a couple bad weeks, and then he just turns it on and goes like supersonic and gets you a ton of points. I think that continues. A.J. Brown is one of the best wide receivers in the league, and the Colts defense, their linebackers in front are really good. Secondary doesn't scare me that much. So I do think that he's going to be able to get up some points. I mean, this is a huge game. It's weird to say it because it's so early in the season, but with the Colts sitting at 3-4, they can get that win over Tennessee and go to 4-4, and then being a game behind the Titans. I realistically think that the only way the team coming out of the South is going to have to win their division. I don't think they get 2 teams in with how good the West and the North are. So I think these games for these 2 teams are going to be pivotal. I mean, the Patriots are getting back into it. We were making fun of Dennis earlier in the season about how bad the Patriots looked, and all of a sudden they're right back in the playoff race. So it's
they've beaten the Jets twice and the Texans.
You play who you play. You just got to win those games. That was the Browns last year. Being honest, they had a lot of bad teams on their schedule, and then they get in, and realistically, you can call me a homer all you want. I think they should have beaten the Chiefs. So you never know. It doesn't matter if they play a bunch of bad teams. If they beat them, they're getting there. They have a chance to get into the playoffs. So aside from Taylor and Pittman, though, do you trust anybody for the Colts?
Yeah, there's nobody I really like for the Colts. Carson Wentz has become a more interesting super flex option. I wouldn't call him top 12, but as your QB2, he's been doing pretty decent the last few weeks.
Yeah, and I hate to say this because I don't like trusting him, but I feel like you still got to ride the high of Mo Alley Cox right now. I think we're still on the incline of that roller coaster. We haven't quite reached the peak yet. I think he's going to get at least a couple more touchdowns over the next couple weeks before we hit that sharp drop. So ride him,
Cox.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. Well, I'll make sure to mark this adult only now. It's one of those things where. Right now, ride that. I don't want to continue that narrative. I was gonna ride the Mo Alley train. That's what I'll say. Not his last name. We'll keep this as PG as possible. Keep riding the Mo Alley train because I think that he's probably going to keep scoring touchdowns, and again at tight end that gets you top 12 value right there every single week, and I think he can do that. Who are you guys picking? I got to think about this one.
Dennis is taking the Titans. I'm taking the Colts.
You know what? I'm going to, in spirit of our good friend Tony, I will take the Colts to continue turning it around. Starting out 0-3 and coming back and turning the season into 4-8.
Tennessee beat them in Tennessee. I figured they probably would split, so...
Here we go. All right. The 5-2 Cincinnati Bengals at the 1-5 New York Jets. How do you feel about C.J. Uzomah, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd this week?
So all the things you said about Mo Alley Cox, I get that, but I actually feel that more strongly towards C.J. Uzomah, who seems to have found a real groove with Joe Burrow. At receiver, it's definitely Jamar Chase, and we've loved what we've seen from Mixon. Tight end is a more low barrier position, and with the way he's spreading the ball out among Uzomah, Higgins, and Boyd in recent weeks, I feel better about Uzomah as a play at his position than I do about the other two. I like T. Higgins' talent, but it seems like they're really only supporting one rock-solid receiver in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I talked a lot about this again with Colin last night, and I think T. Higgins might be a guy you can trade for because he's been so disappointing. Like if you're a rebuilding team and a contender has Higgins and they're trying to get a more effective guy like a Cooper Kupp, like I think you could send Cooper Kupp and easily get a T. Higgins and some picks back because of how good Cooper Kupp's been. And at that point, I don't even think you're rebuilding. You could almost be retooling, getting a guy like Higgins back because it's been a weird year for him. He's dealt with some injuries, but I think he's going to be fine. Chase has been phenomenal. I don't see him. I think he's going to be good all season. I don't know that he keeps this rate up. I mean, this is beyond historic what he's doing. And if he continues to do that, he's going to go down in the record books as like the greatest rookie season of all time at wide receiver. So I don't know that route continues. I definitely think he continues to get yards and some touchdowns, maybe not 200 or 100 plus in a touchdown every single week, which is kind of what he's been doing. So T. Higgins is going to come back into the fold here eventually. And I mean, Uzomah the same thing. If you need a tight end who's going to get you some yards and hopefully a touchdown, there's not many other better choices than CJ Uzomah right now. Any Jets you're firing up this week with Mike White at the helm?
I still like Michael Carter. It looks like Corey Davis may actually miss. I'm just avoiding that passing game, so it's just Carter for me.
Yep, yeah, I'm with you. Carter played good last week. I think that he's going to continue to hopefully be the focal point in the running game, which is kind of what we've been hoping for, to see what he can do. I think that continues. I'm with you. He is the only one I am starting on the Jets, and I'm taking the Bengals to continue their dominating run here in the AFC.
Yeah, we're all taking the Bengals.
The 6-1 Los Angeles Rams at the 1-6 Houston Texans. Is Sony Michel anything more than a handcuff for the Rams?
No, he doesn't seem to have any standalone value. He's only gotten a heavy workload when Darrell Henderson misses.
Yep, I agree with you 100% there. You're firing up all of your Rams players. This should be a pretty good game for the Rams. On Houston, it looks like no Tyrod Taylor yet. David Johnson was announced as a starting running back. Do we believe in him to bring back any kind of value?
I mean, there probably are worse flex options than David Johnson. He had decent low-end flex value even last week with Mark Ingram. I still need to see it to believe it. Both he and Brandon Cooks, you would think, have some appeal. It's not a great matchup, and still riding the Davis Mills train. So I think it really depends on your situation. I've seen Johnson on waiver wires, even in Dynasty. Not a lot of people believing in him or our boy Philip Lindsay right now.
Yeah, the one thing I think gives Johnson a little bit of a jump, and I don't necessarily believe this, but it really feels like after the last couple years in Denver and even him coming over to Houston, that Lindsey has just been pegged as a guy who can't catch the ball, which I don't believe, but it just seems like teams don't use him in that aspect of the game anymore, which does give Johnson then some of that third down upside and being behind production, which is going to happen not just in this game, but moving forward. I don't know how many carries they'll get. I mentioned it last night. Again, I feel like I'm giving Colin a lot of free press here today that we talked about this running back situation a little bit because Mark Ingram had carried the ball 60 more times than the next two. And Lindsey had actually outcarried David Johnson up until this point by about 10 carries. So if that switches some and Johnson gets some more carries, but gets a lot of the third down and receiving work, I think he can be flex worthy. I don't know that he ever gets up into RB2 territory. You're going to need to get touchdowns out of him. But I do think he could get you probably 10 points a week. If he can get 30, 40 yards receiving and then 50, 60 yards rushing every week, which does seem possible, he's going to get you 10 points. There's not many other players you can ask to be at least somewhat consistent as a low-end flex play. So I think Johnson, as long as he's a starter, he can get you that. I'd be willing to throw him into a flex spot every single week. I will take the Rams to win this game.
Dennis and I are also taking the Rams. Well, if you're hungry for a big win this week, like some of the other teams that are out there, head to DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, who has you covered. New customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game, and if they do, you win $200 in free bets. It's that simple. Sportsbook isn't available in your state. DraftKings won't leave you empty-handed because everyone can play for huge cash prizes all season long with DraftKings daily fantasy sports contests. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the promo code TPPN. Bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game and win $200 in free bets if they win. If they win, you win with promo code TPPN this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. You must be 21 or older in New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, let's talk about the 3-4 New England Patriots at the 4-2 Los Angeles Chargers. Could be a very interesting game in the fact that last time Justin Herbert played the Patriots, I believe they got blitzed 42-0. So we know that Bill Belichick can coach against rookies, and I don't know that necessarily changes 1 year into things. I do think that they could probably still throw some things at Justin Herbert that could confuse him. So what can the Patriots do to win this game?
Yeah, and unfortunately for the Chargers, they're coming off a game where we thought they would be very competitive in Baltimore, and they got taken apart by that defense. I'm sure Belichick watched some of that, but we've seen the Patriots. They haven't won these games against some of the upper echelon teams, but they held Tom Brady and the Buccaneers in check. They held Dallas down for quite a while, made that a much more competitive game than some of us thought that was going to be, held the Saints down a little bit. So they have the pieces on defense to hold it down, and then it's being opportunistic on offense, playing a little bit of ball control offense. They've gotten Damien Harris going. I have him as a strong RB2 play this week. I think he's going to be good. And then they need Mac Jones to keep evolving and hit a few big timely plays.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is going to be what Damien Harris can do, right? I mean, the Chargers have just been absolutely destroyed on the ground this year. And realistically, their secondary hasn't been good either. For a team that I was expecting to have a really good defense, and I feel bad because I talked a lot about this at the beginning of the year. I picked him to make the playoffs. I have Justin Herbert as my MVP, and I said a lot of it I think is going to come down to this defense turning it around. But every time we buy into the Chargers, something happens, and they just end up failing. And I think it's going to be that defense now. That defense is just not looks good to start off the season. Maybe they were able to fix some things during that bye week. We'll find out. But Damien Harris, I mean, I had him at 13, and it actually took a lot it was between him and Mixon as my 12 spot, and I put Mixon up just because they're going up against the Jets. But, I mean, Damien Harris, I think as long as he doesn't fumble, is in for a massive, massive game, which also likely means that Ramondre Stevenson's going to get about 30 carries for like 40 yards, and Damien Harris is going to get 5.
Or J.J. Taylor.
Oh, J.J. Taylor is going to get 10 catches for like 60 yards, and Damien Harris is going to get 2 receptions and 4 carries, and we're all going to be cursing at this point in time, well, probably a couple hours after this on Sunday, as Damien Harris is not doing anything for our fantasy teams. On the Chargers side, are we expecting a bounce back from that Ravens game for Justin Herbert?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Josh Allen had 2 weeks to think about a disappointing loss, so did Justin Herbert. I think we see a good game on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still in on him winning the MVP. Definitely a bad game. And he's going to have a good one because the Patriots defense is still very good. But you got Mike Williams, who's playing as like a wide receiver 1. You got Keenan Allen. One thing that does concern me is Austin Eckler dealing with a little bit of a hip injury. I don't know how much he plays. And I really, just to kind of go off topic here a little bit, what are you doing with him? Because we've seen before, I mean, Eckler's a tough SOB, but a hip injury, that's kind of a big deal. Like, I looked. A lot of bookmakers have him at only 50 yards this week. So a lot of people in Vegas who are very smart people don't think he's going to get a lot of run this week.
Well, it was troubling, too, because it was a late week ad. I think he got added to the injury report yesterday, which is never what you like to see. I think you have to watch it. If he plays, I'm still playing him because, you know, he's a factor in the short passing game, and he is really their only rusher. If he doesn't play, there isn't a running back I want. You know, they'll mix in Justin Jackson, Larry Roundtree, and Joshua Kelly, and you can keep them all as far as I'm concerned.
You don't trust Gabe Neighbors? Come on now. 6'3", 243? He's a bowling ball. No, yeah, I'm with you. I think you've got to play Eckler unless they rule him out. Please take him out of your lineups. But if they say
No, you
he's
play
good
him
to go,
regardless. If he's out,
hey,
he's still scoring.
If it makes you feel any better, somebody who's known Devontae Adams was out since Monday did not remove him from a couple lineups. So here's hoping, just because he's so damn good, that he's gonna give me some wins this week.
That has happened to me in the last couple of weeks with those late working on Sunday morning. In that 90-minute window, I don't always have a chance to go back and look. And then afterward, I'm like,
that's a little bit more understandable for you because you were working. Like I said, I mean, I've known since like Monday that Devontae Adams wasn't going to be out, and I still didn't remove him. I thought
you just had hope.
But no, he's just so damn good. You can't. It's bad fantasy karma. You pull him out.
You know what?
Bad fantasy karma.
My Scott Fishbowl team, though.
Yeah,
I was so down in my potential options with bye weeks and injuries to tight ends. I had to play both James Conner and Randall Cobb last night.
Well, hey, at least that's working out for you. Scott Fishbowl, man.
Better to be lucky than good, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Because I mean, I love being in that league, but my goodness, it's so frustrating. Because just to go off on a tangent here, like I'm like third highest in my league in points, and I'm like 2-5 or whatever because I just keep playing high end scoring teams every single week, and then I'm losing Gronk, Logan Thomas, the Baker injury a couple weeks ago killed me. Like it's been a rough go for Matty B over here.
I gambled on Drew Lock and I had Ryan Fitzmagic, so I thought I was set at quarterback. But the last 2 weeks of buys, thank God, Josh Allen and Derek Carr don't have buys the same week, so I at least had a quarterback. But I have Kittle, I had Logan Thomas. Fortunately, though, I did a late grab on Hunter Henry, and that is one thing I'm going to be watching out for in this game because he's had some chemistry with Jones, and this is low-key a revenge game for him playing against the team that drafted him.
Yeah, I mean, I love being in that league, and I love my team, so it's a little bit disappointing that I'm sitting at 2-5. But hey, nowhere to go but up. For the I will. I'm going to take the Chargers. I think the Chargers will win.
Dennis and I are taking the Chargers as well. It seems that Dennis has come off his 14-3 prediction for the Patriots.
Patriots, smart man. The 1-5 Jacksonville Jaguars at the 2-5 Seattle Seahawks. How are we feeling about Jaguars tight end not Sam Darnold, Dan Arnold?
Hey, they're palindromes. Dan Arnold, actually, they traded for him, and they seemed to like him. We weren't sure exactly what that would mean, but even on a short week acquiring him, they've been targeting him. They were targeting him before the bye. I think he's a decent tight end, too, right now with some upside.
Yeah, I think I might pick him up and stash him, especially if I have another tight end that you can play. So I want to see it first, but I'm with you. We talked a little bit about this earlier in the week as well, like, the fact that they're using him, I think that he's going to start coming on here and actually start scoring you some points, at which case you're not going to be able to get him off the waiver wire. So now might be the time you have to do it. And
he's
then
a
just
desperation fill-in for me this week in a couple places.
Is he? Hey, I can't remember how. I think I had him top 15, so I think he's in for a good week. I really do here against the Seahawks. Are you playing anyone from the Seattle Seahawks backfield?
I'm not the Rashad Penny truther that Dennis is, but also Alex Collins, he seemed nicked up, hasn't been incredible. Their entire offense is a little bit of a struggle. I don't even feel great about Tyler Lockett this week. Honestly, the only one I feel confident playing is DK Metcalf, and that's just because of his talent.
Yeah, I mean, DK is just he has to be locked up in your lineups, and I'm with you on Lockett. Like, he was so good earlier this year, and I thought maybe, we saw a couple down weeks. It's like, I hope bounce back because that's what Tyler Lockett does, and he hasn't. And I think some of that is because Russ Wilson is not there. No one else can throw those moonshots like Russell Wilson unless Justin Fields can. But Justin Fields is not the quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. So I'm with you. Lockett likely continues struggles, and I don't know that Penny's going to do anything. If Alex Collins was healthy, I'd play him because I think he's got some upside, but even that, he hasn't looked great, and now he's banged up as well. So I think if you can avoid it, I'm with you. I'm not touching anybody in this backfield. Who are you guys taking?
Dennis is taking the Jaguars because apparently he's a big Urban Meyer's truther. I couldn't do it. I'm still taking the Seahawks.
I think I'm going to take the Jags as well, just because Trevor Lawrence has been improving a lot these past couple weeks, coming off the bye. Seattle's if this was the Seattle defense of old, this would be an easy pick for me on Seattle, but they're not. And Russell Wilson's not there. This offense doesn't look good. I'm going to take the Jaguars. The 2-5 Washington football team at the 3-4 Denver Broncos. Can Washington get back on track?
They could. Denver's defense hasn't been as good the last 4 weeks as they were the first 3. Von Miller hasn't been practicing. There's a chance he misses, in which case Denver has none of the 4 linebackers that started the season with. So, Washington has a chance. I still like the talent in Denver secondary, but they haven't exactly been locked down.
Yeah, I mean, this is about as best a chance as they're going to get. Just with all the injuries Denver's dealing with. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater's still beat up. Is Von Miller going to be back for this game?
No, that's what I just said. He hasn't been practicing. So it looks like he probably won't be back. I mean, they still have a lot of secondary talent, but they actually traded for a backup linebacker from the Vikings and a backup linebacker from the Rams this week, and it looks like both guys have a decent shot at starting or playing significant time.
So, yeah, I mean, if there's any shot, this is going to be it. You're still firing up McCoy and Antonio Gibson, but the Washington football team, they need a win in some of the worst ways right now. Probably one of the most disappointing teams of the season so far. The Broncos have lost 4 straight. Does it end here?
They're at home. Washington hasn't been great on offense or defense, so it's a good chance. But Denver has faced what I perceived to be some decent matchups the last 4 weeks and has struggled mightily. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, I think this is going to actually be a really good game. I think both teams are very evenly matched, to be honest. So I do think that this will come down to a couple plays here or there. I'm going to take Washington, though. I think they've got just a little bit more offensive firepower that could possibly challenge Denver a little bit more and end up getting the win.
Dennis and I are taking the Broncos.
The 6-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the 4-2 New Orleans Saints. Likely no A. B. What do we get? Or do we get another big day from Godwin and Evans? Gronk looks like he will be back this week as well.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how they mix Gronk back in, but we saw Evans and Godwin really take off last week, and I think they will probably need to put up some points here. So I think they both have another solid game, and I think Fournette could have a solid game.
Yeah, I think I've got Godwin in for a pretty big game. I had him top 15. Evans, though, I had down at 24 because I think Gronk is going to come back with a vengeance here and have a pretty big game. And I'm with you. They seem to be relying a lot more on Fournette, and I don't think that goes away here. I think he's going to be a big part of this game as well. So I think that's got to affect somebody, and for me, it's going to be Mike Evans. Still no Michael Thomas, so what do the Saints need to do to win this game?
Yeah, and even more discouraging, they gave it's a few more weeks at least for Michael Thomas. We're to the point where you might wonder if we see him at all this season, which is a real shame. I think the Saints have the same kind of personnel that we saw from Green Bay last night. They don't have quite the same quarterback, but if they can get explosive passing game plays and some rushing plays from Kamara, they can use a newly returned Mark Ingram as kind of a battering ram, and they can get some timely receptions from a Marquez Callaway or Traquan Smith. They can stay in the game. They've got to avoid big turnovers, and they've got to hope that their defense can be disruptive enough to hold the Buccaneers in check and maybe force a couple turnovers of their own.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Michael Thomas, that is a little bit of a blow. If you've got him and you've got him stashed on your IR, at this point, it's not a bad thing, I guess, because you could still end up getting one of the best wide receivers in the game at some point this season. But obviously, we were hoping we were going to see him sooner rather than later. Likely doesn't look like that's going to be the case here. I actually do think this is going to be a very good game, but I'm going to take the Buccaneers to win.
I'm also taking the Buccaneers, but Dennis says Mark Ingram, baby, and is taking the Saints.
I talked a little bit about this again. Hey, Colin, free pub. Last night was Colin. I do think this is a big deal for the Saints getting him back. Him and Kamara had like a really good friendship. I think this could be a huge morale booster for them. we've seen the way teammates kind of rally around him as a leader. We saw that a lot in Baltimore with what he did there, and I think him going back to the Saints is a good thing. But Tampa Bay is really, really good. The Sunday Night Football game, the 5-1 Dallas Cowboys at the 3-3 Minnesota Vikings. Michael Gallup is slated to return. How does this alter the passing attack? Any worries about Dak not playing?
Yeah, early in the week, I wasn't worried at all about Dak. It seemed like he had done well coming back and got the bye at the right time. There's been talk in the last couple of days about him needing to clear some hurdles, which gives me a little bit of pause. At the end of the day, I think he does end up playing in this game. Having Gallup back just gives them another weapon. We didn't really get a chance to see this season exactly what it would be like with Gallup, who got injured pretty early in that first game. I still like CeeDee Lamb, the best of those receivers, and I still think Lamb and Cooper are a notch above. And it's possible that Dalton Schultz has jumped Michael Gallup's position too. Gallup in a contract year might just be the odd man out a little bit. I think it hurts Tony Pollard more than anyone else.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Zeke, I think, is going to be in for a big game because Minnesota's defense has been pretty good this year. I don't know if this is going to be a huge shootout. Jerry Jones seems to believe that Dak's going to play. There was a lot of talk down here in Texas that he was seen at a Stars game the other day without the boot on, so that's probably good news. But I am a little bit worried about Dak not playing as well, and I'm with you on Gallup. If Cooper or Lamb were hurt, maybe I'd be more excited about him coming back. But with the way that Dalton Schultz has really kind of come on as well, I think Gallup is unfortunately like the fourth guy in this rotation at this point. So I'm not sure he's going to do much. And he's definitely a guy that I think the Cowboys are hoping that he comes out and has a big game this weekend, and then they're hopefully possibly able to trade him by Tuesday, because I do think if he goes out and has a big game, there's going to be some team that wants him, and I think he's going to probably be somewhere else as of next season. The Vikings have been up and down. What would a win mean for them here?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously saw Green Bay 7-1 now, but the rest of that division is pretty open. Chicago 3-4. They've been struggling. The soft center of the NFC, there's going to be a lot of teams hovering around 500 trying to make the playoffs. The Vikings have quietly gotten back there. If they can pile up a few of these, crucial wins like this, they can put themselves in conversation for a wild card.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you guys had them much higher than I did. I thought this was going to be one of those years. And I flip-flopped on them. Early in the year, I thought they were going to be that team that goes in because it was every other year they're very good. And while I thought they could be at last minute, I kind of flipped and said they weren't going to be. Had them last in the NFC North. They're playing good. They really are playing good football. And I think this is going to be a very good game. I'm taking the Cowboys, but I'm disagreeing with Dennis. Diggs is getting another interception. But Thielen probably could have a good game.
Yeah, that's what Dennis took the Cowboys, but he said no INT for Diggs, thinks that streak ends and a big game for Thielen. I also think Diggs ends up getting an INT, and I'm also taking the future NFC champion Dallas Cowboys.
The 2-5 New York Giants play the 3-4 Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football. My God, what a wet fart of a matchup this is. This is not a... I'm not excited about this game at all. It's such I mean, let's just be honest, right? It's just not a great matchup. I'm sorry. I mean,
there'll probably some other TV on. Maybe it's night to catch up on health. Eat a little Halloween candy.
I mean, I wish my wife was off so we could watch Dune, because I'm not sure we're going to get a chance to watch it this weekend, because I might put Sopranos back on. But anyways, it's a good matchup for Daniel Jones and the weapons, right? Like, the Chiefs defense is not great. Can Daniel Jones put up a QB1 type week?
Yeah, I've been impressed a little bit with the moxie of Daniel Jones. He's trying to run. We saw him make a fantastic catch last week. He's doing the best he can. Dude brought Dante Pettis back from the dead, got him a touchdown last week, which tells you how far gone Evan Ingram truly is. Kadarius Toney and Sterling Shepard supposed to be back this week. It's not a terrifying defensive matchup. I actually have Daniel Jones as my QB start in my sit start. I think he can sneak into QB1 territory.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't doubt it. The Chiefs defense is bad, and I guess maybe that was a little bit of a mean reaction to this game. I guess it could be decent with as bad as the Chiefs defense is. I think it's going to be good for like the first 2 quarters, but the Giants defense is, if the Giants defense what it was last year, I actually think this could be a good game. But
if there was ever a week to put on the Manning telecast of Monday Night Football, this might be it, because you'll get some good interviews. Last week their interview with Brady was more entertaining than any of that Saints Seahawks game. So, just put on the Manning brothers. I'm sure Eli will have some stories about his time in New York.
Maybe not all good either. I'd love to hear some drama. So yeah, I'm with you on Daniel Jones. The Chiefs defense has not been good this year. If he can get some rushing yards, I think that he could end up being a pretty good quarterback. I'm starting him because he has limited the turnovers for the most part as well this season. So that's definitely good to see. It's kind of been the big crux for him. But likely no Kenny Galladay. Evan Ingram sucks. No Saquon. I don't really know that there's going to be much for him to throw to. Is this a get-right game for the Chiefs? Is this their 3rd get-right game of the season?
Well, look, 3-4, last place in the AFC West. When this game kicks off, it will be November on the calendar. It's time for the Chiefs to get serious if they want to make a playoff run. I think you see, at least offensively, they're going to come out and want to establish something, because they didn't just lose last week. It's fair to say they got humiliated.
Yeah, absolutely. I talked about this a little bit on Monday. I didn't get a chance to watch a lot of those games live. I took my kids and my wife. We went to the air show here in Texas, and I went to look at my phone and saw it was like 27-0. I was like, what? Like that's not possible.
Patrick Mahomes died.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell happened? And so I went back and watched the replay. And again, I mean, it is what it is. I don't know that it's a get-right game, because I don't think the Chiefs are what we thought. They're not the Chiefs of the past. They're just not. I mean, this offense is good. It's not great for whatever reason, whether it's the offensive line not really gelling, not having a running game, Patrick Mahomes trying to do too much. I think they need the bye week in a major way to kind of sit down and everybody calm down. So I think they're going to play good. I think it's going to be a good game overall. But no, I don't think it's a get-right game for them, because I don't think they have everything figured out.
And I think they're a late season bye. They're November 28th. So they still have three weeks to go. The thing that'll be interesting, the Giants defense hasn't been incredibly terrifying, but we saw a Carolina team come in and need to get a get-right game last week and get taken apart. Kansas City better watch out. You can't take any of these teams lightly.
Speaking of the Tennessee Titans beating up on the Chiefs last week, news just dropped 36 seconds ago. Julio Jones out for the Tennessee Titans this week, so adjust your lineups accordingly.
And even more A.J. Brown to the moon.
Yeah, Julio Jones. Who would have thunk it? Anyways, I will take the Chiefs to win the game.
Dennis is taking the Chiefs, and I guess I am taking the Chiefs as well. I guess, does that make them the stain in the underwear for the week?
Probably. Yeah, I mean, I really don't think they're going to blow the Giants out, but I just don't think it's going to be a good game, clearly. All right, so that will do it for us today. We'll be back on Monday, likely Matt, myself, and Dennis to recap everything we saw from the Week 8 NFL slate. Everybody, good luck to your fantasy teams this weekend. We are getting closer and closer to those trade windows to decide if your team is really that contender or if you are a pretender. So we'll talk a little bit about that next week as well. Until next week, enjoy the weekend, enjoy the NFL football, and we'll talk to you guys.